Hello, friends. Welcome to Television Tuesday. Merry Christmas Eve if you're watching this the day it comes out. This will be, I don't know if it'll be short or long, but we only have 4 things to talk about this episode of Television Tuesday, and that's because as we're into Christmas time, there's a lot less things on. So let's get right into it because we had 2 big things to talk about. First, the Jeff Goldblum, the world according to Jeff Goldblum. Was a good episode. It was about bicycles. It was kind of quirky, like it always is. I think one of the funny things is where he goes to an actual place where they make performance bikes, and he gets to wear a biking outfit, and it is quite a funny moment in that show. And it's definitely worth checking out. I enjoy that show. With the Imagineering story concluded on Disney Plus. That's one of the only things between that and Mandalorian, the only things I'm watching on Disney Plus right now. There is a thing that's like a moment with Disney or a day with Disney. They're like these 5 or 6 minute shorts. There's been 3 of those, and those are pretty good. The most recent one was, I think it was Sage Steele on like a day in the life of Sports Center. They're quick, they're like 5 minutes. They're pretty good. Goldberg's is off for the holidays. I have not watched any more of Schooled. I haven't started anything new. It's, we do our Christmas this past weekend, so it's been a pretty busy time. Mandalorian we'll talk about in the non-spoiler section. I imagine next week when it is the Mandalorian finale, and that may be one of the few things we're talking about next week. We'll talk about spoilers of that. What I have to say about Mandalorian is it was finally a pretty good episode of television for me. Remember, all of my opinions, these are just for me. Although the big moment that happens at the end I felt was pretty cheap, meaning the show hadn't earned it. It hadn't earned that emotional moment, and it was kind of a cheap path to get an emotional moment. While the episode of television was enjoyable, and that was reinforced when I saw Victoria watch it, and she's basically done with the show after that episode. Pretty much all the people that I talked to in person, like each day, like James or Andrew or David, none of them really like it. I don't think Steve even watches it. And none of ours, well, James, Star Wars is his number 1 fandom, and he's not a big fan of Mandalorian for the same reasons I am, is that you can't see anybody act, and there's no plot. It just kind of rummages around. So maybe we're working toward a plot. This should have been like episode 3, and we had all those episodes in between. So, but there were stakes, there were things that happened. I just felt it was unearned. But I'm going to reserve judgment on that because it seems to be very much a 2-part finale episode, part 1. So we'll talk in much more detail about Mandalorian next week, probably as I try to decide if I'm going to continue watching it, if it comes back, which I'm sure it will come back for season 2. Non-spoiler stuff, we had the morning show season 1 finale. Absolutely outstanding. One of the greatest season finales that I have seen in a long time. I could not believe that they got to where they were getting. I did not know how they were going to get to where they were getting. I was pretty certain they would not. But they got to the place the show needed to be to continue. It will have a season 2. And it is very dynamic. So many things happen. It's emotional. And I will just say Jennifer Aniston puts out a top-notch performance, as do many people, but she is top-notch in that. If you did not watch Morning Show because the way the critics went after Apple after the first 3 episodes, critics who just wanted to say that Apple couldn't make TV shows, almost all of them have had to reverse course, especially after the end of the season, talk about how good it was. So give that another chance if you're into. It's a very intense show, as I've talked about a lot, but it was a great season finale. And then Mr. Robot was the series finale, season 4. The final episode was a 2-part episode. It was about as perfect as it could be for that show. Not a lot of people watch that show, under 1 million people, which is a shame because it has been the best show on television this year. We're going to talk a lot about that and Morning Show and spoilers. I will just say Mr. Robot is worth the watch. Try not to get spoiled by the events of the finale. They don't ruin the show. They just change the way you're going to watch it. Both Victoria and I feel like we need to watch it all again based on the information we learned in the last 4 or 5 episodes. So, that's out there for you. I would heavily encourage you. I think it's 45 episodes, Mr. Robot, so it's not a huge investment. It's less than 2 seasons of network television like NCIS or Big Bang Theory. It's less than 2 seasons of that. So it's something certainly watchable. Again, not a lot of TV. I have not seen any of the movies yet. As of you're watching this tonight, we might go see Jumanji. That's what we're excited to go see. And then maybe we'll go see Star Wars tomorrow. We may, wait a little while. I'm not sure. I don't think any of us are in a rush to go see it. But Jumanji we would like to see, and we're late on that. Okay, now we're going to move into the spoiler section. There's 2 spoilers. I'll do morning show first, because I think more people are watching that. And then when I do a little hand wave, we'll move into Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot, of which I don't even have notes. I'm just going to do it all by my memory, and probably a lot of morning show I will. So here's morning show. It starts with that suicide trigger warning, and right then I felt confident that Hannah was going to overdose or suicide or something. Probably overdose because it mentioned drugs, which is, of course, what we're working towards. Now, what I thought would happen is they would pull off the Mitch interview, and she would respond so poorly to that. That is how her suicide would come about. But that was all I had really thought. I had no idea how they were going to get Jennifer Aniston's character, Alex, to be aligned. I had no idea what they were going to do with Bradley, and what they were going to do with all of those, the story with the interview. We didn't want Mitch to win, right? We don't want him to tell a good side of the story. We've learned he's a terrible person. Even though Steve Carell's been great. And the way they pulled that off with the suicide causing Bradley to not do the interview, and she's going to leave, and then that leads to her telling Alex everything they were going to do. And at that point where Alex stood up and Bradley's leaving and Alex starts chasing after her, that show entered the stratosphere of acting. And the scene where they're walking through Times Square, and the fan comes up and tries to take a picture, and she takes his phone, and Alex is having that breakdown. It's just such good material. And then as the reveal happens where they go live, and Alex pushes back, and then she starts pacing around, and she seems to be having a mental breakdown. And then the reveal where they come after Fred, they come after the network, and they finally reveal everything that's been going on before they get cut off the air is just amazing acting. I was a big fan of Chip being the one that called that leaked the story about Mitch. I love the scene where Chip hit Mitch. Because you want Mitch to get punched. That's what you want to happen in this story. And so I was a big fan of that. What is her name? It's hard to pronounce. I don't want to mess it up. Gugu Mbatha-Raw. I don't know how to pronounce that played Hannah. She was unbelievable this season and played a very chewy, challenging, tough role. And it was great to the end. I'm not sure what the kind of the iconography of the street with the steam rising up that we see right after because she calls and says she wants to talk about the job in LA. And then it's like there's that shot with the smoke or the steam, and then we find out she's overdosed, and we get that shot again. I don't know what that means. I need to research and see what they were trying to do there. I don't even want to speculate because it could sound poor. So I'm not sure what that was trying to tell us. Maybe it was her mental state. I'm not sure. I also thought the actor that plays Claire, Belle Powley, she's been great this whole season. And the stuff with Claire and Yanko has been really good. It was such an emotional scene where Claire comes running back in and hugs Yanko. And, they're just all devastated. It's been terrible. But I think the actor that Crudup that plays Corey has been great. And then the stuff with Chip where he's in Times Square and he sees the reveal happening on TV, he's crying, and then it, of course, gets cut off the air. Brilliantly done. It feels like season 2, which will probably start around Thanksgiving next year, will be now Bradley. I would think it will be a time jump, a year later, 2 years later. Chip is back in charge of the show. Corey's the head of the network, and Bradley and Alex are doing the morning show and delivering the news. And maybe it won't be about the sexual misconduct anymore. They'll have moved on. And it'll be about whatever the news story is, whatever they're going to try to rip from the headlines or whatever the case may be. I've heard that they don't want to be direct political, pulled from the headlines. They want to be adjacent. And part of this, they're probably filming now or they're about to be filming. And so they can't like do the election, which would be kind of the hot thing that's happening when it airs next year. So they might do something else. I don't know. We'll see. But it was really good and just kept getting better. And I would highly recommend you watch that. And I'm excited to see it come back. Okay. That's the end of the morning show. Now, series finale of Mr. Robot. I'm not sure what I expected out of the series finale. I don't know what people expected. Like I said, there's less than 1 million people in the country watching it. So it doesn't have a huge audience. It reminded me similar to the Lost finale in that I loved the Lost finale, and it's because I watched Lost for all of those wonderful people that were on Lost. And I spent each week with them for 100 hours. And I wanted to see what happened to them. I wanted them to see them get good endings and all of this stuff. I didn't care about the mysteries that much. Not that much. Sure, it was the plot, but I didn't care about that much. I cared more about the people. I felt that this was similar to that in that this was an ending for Elliot and Darlene. And even though the plot had already tied up most of the quote-unquote questions, there are certain things like, what did White Rose show Angela that kind of made her go crazy? We don't know. What was the machine? We don't know. And I think those are the two big ones. What happened to Tyrell with the box in the woods? We don't know. And I didn't find myself even caring about that last night, watching that finale. And I still don't. They're just things I remember that we didn't get an answer to. We went into the episode thinking, okay, did Elliot step into this alternate reality? Is this the machine? And what we actually learn is this is all in Elliot's mind. It's the safe place. And the big reveal, of course, being the Elliot that we've known all along, that talks to us, that says, hello, friend, is not the real Elliot. It's a personality just like Mr. Robot. It is the mastermind personality. If one of his personalities is the protector and one of them's the innocence or whatever, it's the mastermind. It's a personality that got created seemingly when we joined. We saw the mastermind for the first time because it's new. And it's the one to help fix the world he lives in to make it a better place for him to live. That's what it ended up being as the mastermind. And I thought that was a nice reveal because a lot of times when you get a reveal like that, it ends up being that none of it ever happened. It was all fictitious. And that's not at all what happened. That's why you get the scene with Darlene at the end where she says, I've been here with you through it all, through the 5-9 hack, through the Deus group. All of the events that we saw happened. It was just the mastermind was who we were with. Just like we saw Mr. Robot a bunch of the time. We never really saw the real Elliot until the very, 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 very final scene. In fact, we never saw the real Elliot. We looked up through the real Elliot's eyes. And the performances were brilliant. B.D. Wong deserves Emmy consideration. Obviously, Rami Malek, Christian Slater, and Carly Chicken especially. She's been so good this season. And she was pivotal. She just rips the emotion out of you in that final scene with her and Elliot. And ultimately, the show is about a brother and a sister. It's what it was about. At its core, it was about the familial bond with a brother and sister when they've been through so many terrible things and they are all that each other has. And that was great. It was great. I'm not a trained mental health professional, so I can't speak to how well this portrayed this dissociative ID. I don't know, but it seemed very good, and a lot of things I've read said it seems it's pretty good. Podcasts I listen to, but in terms of explaining, if you need it explained, I'm 100% certain everything happened. They had the scene with Darlene to show us, and the way I interpreted the ending scene is they were all telling the mastermind, who had almost forgot that there was a regular Elliot. He had become so in control. And so like Mr. Robot and the mom personality and the child personality, and then like Krista and everybody's trying to get the mastermind to let go. To go sit in the movie theater and watch Elliot's life until Elliot needs them again. And I kind of took the final scene where he sits down and you've got the projector and we're seeing all the different scenes of the show. And then we come up through real Elliot's eye and we see Darlene looking down at him. And now we're in the movie theater watching. And we're seeing Darlene say, hello, Elliot. For the first time in several years, she sees her brother. That is actually him. and not a different personality. And it was great. It was great. And I think one of the things that connected so much was where the mastermind says, for this to work, you have to let go too, talking to us. Saying you have to let the show go too, for Elliot to be healed, for him to be back. And how emotional is that? Because this show has done such a good job of bringing you in and making you feel a part of the universe that Elliot really needs you, and he does need you, and now he needs you to let go. So good. Such a wonderful, wonderful finale. It's different, it's unusual, but Sam Esmail's creation here, Mr. Robot, has always been that way. And I think it's one of the best shows of the decade, and it's one of the strongest series finales I've ever seen. And I really, really liked it. The scene where he's talking to Krista, and Krista's saying, "Oh, I know about Mr. Robot, I know about these," and the mastermind looks at the camera and goes, "I guess she doesn't know about you yet." And then talking to me as the viewer, and Krista looks at the camera and says, "Oh, I know about all of them, the voyeurs who think they are not involved but have been watching all along." It's just awesome. It just brings you as the viewer into this show, which I don't know any show that's ever done that before. Not to that extent. So I thought it was just great. I loved it. I'm very sad to see that show end, but it was a perfect way to end. I'm going to watch it again. I don't know what fills that void. You got Westworld coming back soon, which will help fill that void, but between Legion, which was just off-the-wall bonkers, and then Mr. Robot, which was just so intelligent, I've lost a couple of very intelligent TV shows this year, and I crave that. So Westworld will fill it. I'll have to find something different. Anyway, it was wonderful. If you, for some reason, watch this and you just got spoiled on all that, and you haven't watched it, I encourage you to go watch it. It's a great show. Okay, that is Television Tuesday for this week. I hope you have a good morning, good Christmas Eve, a good Christmas tomorrow. Look out for a new trailer tomorrow, and I'm going to put out a Dubbies tomorrow, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. Merry Christmas to everybody. I'll talk to you next time.